So we've done a few videos about 16th and triplet subdivisions and all the work that goes into mastering the space in between them. So now let's talk about metric modulation. Metric modulation is fun, it's relatively easy, and it's a really good tool. Metric modulation is kind of a buzzword in drumming and music theory, but all it is really moving the meter around to change the feel of what we're doing without actually changing the tempo. We can make it feel like the tempo is changing, which can be a really good tool for songwriting, but no matter how far down the rabbit hole you go, wherever you end up is still related to the original tempo you started from. We're going to cover two approaches for getting to kind of the same place. The first thing we should talk about before moving to the drum set is polyrhythms, which is also kind of a buzzword, but it's not as hard as it seems. We're just going to focus on like 3 basic polyrhythms for today to use for metric modulation. We're going to think of quarter notes in just 4/4, and we're going to do 3 against 2, 4 against 3, and 5 against 4. Here's 3 against 2. Here is 4 against 3. And here's 5 against 4. Now let's go to the drum set and talk about how we can use these for metric modulation. First, I'm going to do 3 against 2. So if I'm playing a straight beat with quarter notes or eighth notes or whatever on my hi-hat, I can call that my 3 or my 2, and then do the opposite as metric modulation. A good way to practice this is with a metronome. So if you just have your metronome set to quarter notes, right now mine's at 140, focus on those quarter notes, but just play the 2 of the 3 against 2. So we're going from the beat which was on this 140 BPM quarter note that you hear right now, and then we're switching it to the 2. All right, let's do the same thing with 4 against 3. I'm going to keep the metronome the same on 140. So again, if we isolate just the 4 against the 3 that we hear on the met, it sounds like this. So here's doing the same thing with that polyrhythm. Now let's do the same thing with 5 against 4. So for the 5 against 4, my metronome is going to be the 5, and I'm going to be playing the 4. If I take out the hi-hat and then I just isolate the 4 over the 5, which is my 140 BPM, I get this. So now I'll do the same thing as a beat. So that's how we can do that with polyrhythms. Similarly, we can move the emphasis around different groupings of subdivisions like triplets or 16th notes to establish a new macro rhythm in the same time that we were in before. So if I start really simple and play 16th note groove on the hi-hat, I'll change my macro rhythm or the emphasis from being groups of 4 to groups of 3 or groups of 5 or 2 or 6, any number like that. I'm just going to go through a couple different groupings using my 16th notes on the hi-hat. Without playing straight 16th notes all the time, I can do the same thing by subdividing in my head. All right, let's do the same thing with triplets. So I'm going to play a normal triplet beat, but I'm going to have all my triplets on the hi-hat so you can hear them, and I'm just going to change my groupings. Now I'll do the same thing without playing all the subdivisions on my hi-hat. So when you're making these changes, you can build whatever beat that you want out of it. First of all, you don't always have to go back to the original beat unless you're just trying to apply some metric modulation for a little bit. If you're actually using this as a transition to something else, stay there and play whatever you want. It doesn't have to be simple like I was doing. This concept works with any rate, any groupings of notes. So you can get really creative with how you're moving around space and time. This is a dangerous tool. Knowledge is power, and with great power comes great responsibility, right? So be careful where you choose to do this and who you're playing with. These ideas are really good for changing the feel and like taking people for a ride. So when we're playing a gig where this kind of thing would be sort of appropriate, it's fun to switch things up for just a little bit. Usually brightens people's moods, and the audience is never expecting it. It's also a really good tool when you're just jamming with people. Whenever the jam starts to feel kind of stale, I can change things really instantly if I just switch into a different time based on metric modulation. Doesn't throw people off too much, and it gives them something else to work with. If you like this video, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. I have many more videos you can check out about drumming concepts and timing, and a lot more videos on the way. Hit the links in my description if you want to take some lessons with me, get some Relaxed Velocity merch, follow me on socials, and check out my music. See ya!